Hi, I'm Jeremy Ford and I'm going to go back to basics, just looking at different pastel papers. And I've got a few different makes here. We'll just have a look at each one very briefly. If you ask 10 different artists which materials to use, you'll likely get 10 different answers. So I'm just going to show you what I know and my opinions. Other artists may have different views, of course, and a lot of it's what you get used to. Well, the first paper we're looking at is Velour, made by Müller, and they make a wonderful range of colours here. There's all kinds of different colours, very subtle earthy colours and greys. And the touch of this is almost like velvet. It's almost like a material, fabric. But it takes pastel really well. I've just got a little bit of white here, and you can move it around and you can soften it. You can even get rid of it if you rub it enough. This paper comes in lots of different colours, and sometimes it's nice to leave some of the background colour showing. So in any case, with any of these papers, maybe you might want to think about having a contrasting paper, and on all these papers, like for this one, you know, this kind of sandy colour, well, you can imagine doing a portrait on here or a beach scene or something autumnal. So all these colours are really nice. I'm not quite sure what I'd use the green one for, but maybe something slightly more avant-garde. It's a kind of an odd-looking green, but as I say, you can cover it all up. You don't have to leave any of the paper showing. So that is Velour, made by Müller. Quickly moving on, here we've got Uart, which is a little bit like emery paper or sandpaper, and there are different degrees of the paper, and on the back of each one of these there are different numbers. So this is 400, 600 and 800, and the higher the number, the smoother the paper. Although these are quite textured, if I put a little bit of white on here, I mean, all of these papers take pastel really well. You can move it around, you can smudge it relatively easily if you're wanting to do blending. Obviously, with the really rough papers, it would be very difficult to do that with your fingers because it'd be like doing it on sandpaper. So this one that I've just been blending here is the 800, which is relatively smooth. But for those rougher papers, you might not want to do any blending. You might want to be much more direct in a kind of impressionist way and not do much softening at all. And this is black I've just been showing you, but they also do other colours as well. And this is a lovely kind of fawn colour as well. So again, you can use different colours for different, it might suggest different subject matter. Moving on to Canson's Mi-Teinte. They do lots of different colour ranges. And the one side of the paper is textured and the other side is smooth. And I've used both sides of this. If I want absolute accuracy and a really sharp detail, maybe with pastel pencils where you're being a bit more careful, then you might want to use the very smooth side. And so this will take pastel pencils really well. The slightly more textured side is fine as well, but you might just be able to see the texture of the paper. You can see the pattern of the paper there. Again, you can blend that in quite nicely, and it's not too thin, which is what I like about all these. They're quite robust, so they're less likely to crease, which some of the thinner papers can do. And then moving on to Pastel Mat, and again, Pastel Mat papers come in lots of different colours. Similarly, you can get them in pads or in big sheets, which you can cut to any size. They do a lovely range of colours here, and there are more. And this is the paper that I tend to gravitate to mostly, more myself. It's not that I don't use the papers. I would use any of these, maybe for different things, different effects. But I tend to use this one more most of the time because I'm familiar with it and I know what it can do. And there's less likely to be dust on this. The rougher the paper, the more likely you are to have dust. And if you start, however you're working, if you start relatively light and then you can build up layers, then you're less likely to produce dust. And the Pastel Mat is quite interesting because, well, you can only use one side. There's a shiny side, which won't take the pastel at all. And then there's this slightly more matte side. And this doesn't smudge quite as much as most other papers. So if you're wanting to blend colours together, you're wanting to move them around a bit, you do need to use quite a lot of pressure, which you can do with your fingers or your hand. And this is very good for detail as well. You know, it will take pastel pencils as well as the bigger chalks. You can also get the crystal paper, which will cover any of these to protect your work. So those are some of the papers that I use. What I would suggest, if you're relatively new to pastel work, is maybe try the SAA's mixed pack. And there's lots of different papers in there, and you can see what you can do on some. Just experiment with them, maybe do fairly simple things, and just get to know the surface of the paper that you're working with, how it handles, and then you may find that you gravitate to one more than another. So I hope that's been helpful. Good luck with your art, good luck with your painting. See you next time.